How do you know when to start a problem-solving effort? It's all based on deviations from what you expect. Hello, I'm Tom. Welcome to my channel, where we talk about continuous improvement in an industrial setting. And in this video, we'll go into when do you launch a problem-solving team, or even just regular problem-solving. You see, if you followed a couple of my videos, you will know that I really like to make the distinction between what is your normal way of doing business and improving that business. And to me, real problem solving is in the normal way of doing business, but that's specifically when we find deviations in the normal way. And when we're trying to improve our standards, improve our way of doing business, then to me we are in the improve loop, which is also a very important part of continuous improvement. To be sure, I just think that to us it is easier if we can separate those concepts and also know that there are different methods that are ideal for solving a deviation, a problem, a deviation from the standard versus improving that standard, because usually, reducing variability, it's in that improvement part, and really getting back to what we already know and finding a root cause, that is in the deviation part. The deviation is caused by usually just one or two root causes, and that gets us solving that, gets us back on standard. But then how do you get basically your topics, right? How do you know when you have a deviation and when it would be interesting to solve that problem in the first place? And for that, let's take a bit of a look in this control loop. So first, a couple words about this concept. I know I have a whole video about it, so we'll keep it short here. But the idea is that we have a standard, and with that standard, we sort of decide, is it good enough for now, or do we want to improve it? If we want to improve the standard, we go through the improve loop, and the end of the improve loop will be update the standard or create a new standard, and that then flows into the control loop. The control loop is all about maintaining your standard ways of working, your performance, basically your processes. And here we have three parts of what we will check and how we will manage it. Then we get to our mystery guest, and it also is a loop. It keeps turning. So you can choose to improve, but you can also definitely choose to just control what you are doing. Now, how do you control your processes and make sure that you are doing those things that are needed for your business and for making money? First off is that you control the skill management of your team. Do we have clear instructions? Do we have also training, skill learning things available? So is there a system for learning each of our workplaces? And then, of course, assessing your people, right? Do we also make sure that the people working on a specific workplace are in fact trained to work there? Do they need some extra info? Do they need some better competence? How do we check if they know how to perform all the tasks? And if we see that somebody's not trained, or we don't even have training material, or we see somebody in the field who is officially trained, who should know what to do, but they make a type of mistake that is quite clearly linked to they don't understand the method, they don't understand our standard way of doing this process, our standard operating procedure for this process. So there is a deviation in the skill and competency management for either the whole process or specifically this person. That is something we flag a deviation, and this deviation, it is a problem to us. Now, teaching one person is generally something you just do, right? You decide that person should indeed work this workplace. Apparently doesn't have all the correct competences, or doesn't have the competences exactly like we would want them to have that. Let's retrain, guide, coach, correct, basically. Although, from time to time, and especially if you see it happening more often, you will also want to tackle the root causes. So what is causing a number of our colleagues, our operators, to not have the correct skills for this job, or not be trained for tasks that we assign. If you see this happening multiple times, you want to fix the root cause underlying it. You want to improve the process of skills management and competence control. Now, if you know that your skills are in order, and basically, even if you know that they're not in order, you do continue on what is happening. An important part of the control cycle of controlling your processes is process confirmation, which means it's also like process control. It means that you go to the process, but you check also really for not so much the product coming out, but you check, are we setting the machine in the correct way? Are the materials conform specifications? Are we doing our work, our processes, according to our best way of doing it, according to our standards? So we confirm that the process is set up and executed as per our standard. Now, here is a very important role for leadership, and that's also why I have a couple of videos on process confirmation, why it is an important, really important system to set up within your organization. Basically, what you do here is managers and leaders, they check the processes, they confirm the ways of working of processes that are within their sphere of influence, within their responsibility. So that usually means that they check their direct reports and maybe one layer deeper than the direct reports. So that way you get also strong management involvement and you manage on processes. Because really, if you want to get to the next level of management of your organization, you should manage that the processes are set correctly. This is basic process physics. If all the inputs are stable and the same, the output will be good. If you cannot really control your inputs, your outputs will sometimes be good, sometimes be bad. Now, if you then celebrate those days that the outputs are good, it's sort of an empty celebration. I mean, it's nice, it's good, do that, but that doesn't guarantee that you will also produce nicely tomorrow. If you, however, really focus on the process inputs and do these confirmations that we are working in the right way, you future-proof your production, your processes. You make it better and more stable for the longer term. So that's why these are so important. Now, when you do that type of round, right, that process confirmation, you will also see deviations. You will see things not going as per our agreed standard. Again, if this is a one-time thing, you probably make a correction. You quickly instruct somebody, you do a quick change, or you correct the outfall of what is happening here. But if you see the same deviation coming back, happening again and again, then we've got a systematic deviation. We have got a problem. It is a big risk for our organization. And if we know that we can actually, because we designed it that way, work in a nice standard, but now we see that we are not working in the standard, something went wrong, something is off. There's almost always, again, one or two root causes to this that will teach us a lot about the underlying processes and make sure that we can really solve it and by this improve our organization. So again, from checking the process, we get very valuable inputs for what we would like to problem solve. And of course, the one that this is the one that most people directly go to when they're talking about problem solving, when they're talking also about KPIs, because that is the performance, the key performance indicators, but more generally the performance of our processes. This is the one most companies also put on the daily board, track a lot, and when you see the performance go down, you put a problem solving team on there. It is the most common. It is also, in fact, of these three, the one that is least likely to have one or two root causes. And that is very important for effective problem solving, because if we use the 6-step problem solving method, it is most effective when you can identify a root cause in the underlying physics or the underlying process that you can then solve and make sure it doesn't happen again. And when you have a very clear break with standards, then there is usually a root cause. Now, when your performance goes down and especially if it is like the OEE of a line over a day or a week, quite often there's actually a couple of things happening. So if you were, for instance, at 70% OEE, there's already 30% of stuff happening. Most of it will probably be cleaning and setup, but still, there is already a lot happening. And when you then drop to 60% OEE, what really happened? Was it really one thing that suddenly made this drop, or is it just a couple of things coming together? More difficult to get in your problem solving. Now, I'm not saying it's not needed. If your results go down, if your performance goes down, you are going to be very interested in solving the underlying problems, because in the end, bad skill management or mistakes or deviations seen in process confirmation, they don't directly cost you money or the future of your company. Bad performance, it's guaranteed to be a big problem for your direct results, for the survivability of your department or even your entire company in the short term. So, of course, you put a lot of focus on that. But if you make sure that your skills and your processes are nicely aligned and controlled, you won't have so many performance problems. But okay, we've got 3 things that we check in our control loop, and all of them can generate this deviation. Well, they don't generate, they identify a deviation. And especially if it is a repeating deviation or something that is really damaging to the direct or longer term future of your company, of your performance, then you want to put a good problem solving effort on there. So you've got your skills management, your competency management, your process confirmation, your performance management, identifying your deviations. Then you decide which of those deviations you're going to put a root cause analysis, a structured problem solving approach to. Now, of course, if they are small, you just implement some countermeasures. If they are pretty clear, those deviations, you're probably not going to follow the whole problem solving method, but you will do parts of the problem solving idea. You use part of the tools and you make updated standards, maybe some new standards that you will then again control. Now, how do you put this into practice? Because, this picture, that's nice. Now you know what we want to do, but how do we want to do it? Your performance, usually companies track it already in KPI meetings, right? Daily stand-ups, performance meetings, a performance control system, PCS. This is something that's quite commonly done in a sort of a shiftly, sometimes even an hourly, shiftly, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis, and it all feeds into each other, and there is a KPI tree to really help you with getting to the bigger picture and identifying what is really important for the company as a whole, but also down to the line where we are working at the moment. So integrate those other 2 into there. For process confirmation, make a system, and I would advise that you use something like a T-card system, but make a system where you have process control rounds. These are standard defined lists of basically what to check. So it's sort of a checklist for a management round on the floor, where you specifically ask to confirm a couple of processes. Now you have your most critical processes on there, and you also allow improvement teams, problem solving teams, or anyone in the performance excellence sphere to put some, let's say, temporary items on those lists that are important, that have been a problem in the past, or they are just new standards. Make those lists a live document, and then you get your leaders, your managers into the factory, onto the shop floor to check that and report it back. Now, what I would advise you is not to report back every single problem confirmation round, but instead take a number like, for instance, 10 times. You collect the results of about 10 problem solving rounds, and then you do an evaluation of this round. Do we see any problems reoccurring? Because if you send a manager, another leader of the organization, to the shop floor they should also be able to solve those small things. They should make the corrections, or at least tell it to the team leader of that area and get the correction done right that day. But if you see the same problem popping up in multiple of these rounds, done preferably by different people over the course of a couple of weeks, you see the pattern emerge. And when you again see it's not just one KPI suddenly dropping and then restoring, but it's a pattern. Something is wrong with a specific process and how we do it, then you know that you got a prime candidate for an organized 6-step problem-solving approach. Also, when you don't see any deviations from the same problem-solving round for those 10 times, you may well decide to put it on hold for some time, or even just take that round out of your process confirmation system. Now, who makes those decisions? There is a school of thought that says that the CI, the Performance Excellence team, should coordinate this. I want to really advise you to combine that with those performance control meetings. So in the daily meeting, that is also the place where you decide, but then not every time, but every 10 times a round was done, on do we need to change something in our process confirmation? What are the conclusions we draw from these last 10 rounds on the same topic? Like that, you get the people who are on a daily basis responsible for the performance of a set of processes, an area, also responsible for setting up the process control system. So not just the performance, but also the inputs, the process. Now you do basically the same with skill management, but this one is a bit more tricky because you can do assessments, right? You can just, on a structured way, go to the line and reassess people who are working a specific workplace and check if they are doing everything according to standard and as we taught them, and if there are any gaps in their knowledge. That is a pretty intense way of checking your competency and skill management. More often, it will come actually from performance or process controls. So take this into sort of an extra gathering of information, of knowledge. When a process confirmation shows that a specific person, a specific task, or a specific workplace is not performing or actually not working according to the standard, then this is one of those standard things, method things, maybe skill or teaching based things. You log it. And then for this one, for the skill management, I really would advise, a good thing would be AM teams, autonomous management teams, or at least a team of people who is really involved in teaching and getting the skill management correct for a specific area, to go over all the observations you make. Also go over what you get from different problem-solving teams, from improvement teams. Collect it and let them make the decisions, or at least the proposals, of which part of your competence management system, of your trainings, of the way you teach should be improved. Now, the one thing you can, of course, check in a very quick, data-driven way is, do we have any people on workplaces who are not formally trained for that place? Is there a good balance of 3 people to each workplace and 1 person can work at least 3 workplaces? Such things definitely also important. But for this, we really get into the whole system of the training and education pillar, or a learning and development part of your organization. Most difficult will get you some of the best results if handled correctly. Here also, if they identify specific problems, they will have root causes, they will have things to solve. Now, sometimes it is just such a big part of the variation that you do an entire improvement cycle purely on competence management. These are usually difficult, but very good and beneficial improvement type of teams also to do. But all 3 can signal the deviations, especially when they are more frequent. You put the full 6-step problem-solving method onto that problem, get to the root cause, update your standards based on what the team finds, and improve in this way also your performance. Even though we are not in the improvement circle is about reducing variation and stabilizing everything and getting to the next level, the control cycle also, in the end, improves the results, but it does it by eliminating the problems. Because if you have a pretty okay process that quite often has a downward dip because of a big problem, you eliminate all those downward dips, the average of your performance will of course be better. And even more important, the reliability of your processes, and by that of you as a producer, as an organization, will also improve. And that is what customers are really asking for. So get the control circle in order, check the skills, how we do the processes, which performance we see, any structured deviations, go into a good structured problem solving approach. We get new standards and the circle begins anew. Now, if you are interested in when you get this deviation, how do we problem solve? Don't forget to download my free problem solving template. It goes through my 6-step approach to problem solving and will really help you focus on it with a team. The tools are relatively simple, but that is by design because I really want to focus on how you take others along into that journey of critical thinking and of problem solving, and that is where you will get the best results. For now, I wish you the best of luck controlling your business and processes, and as always, enjoy the continuous improvement journey.